Everyone, it's Billy Rude from FIFTY8 magazine, and thank you for watching The Art of Consciousness. And in this episode, I'll go deeper in how our brain works and the mechanics. The nerve cells in the brain look like little squids, and dendrites are stations for other neurons and nerves to hook up. When the nerve cells are firing at the neurosynaptic cleft, it creates a magnetic flux on the outside and inside of the axon. Then that spark goes out to each of the tendrils of these neurons like a spark plug. The axon of a nerve cell has little gates on it that open and close. An axon can be 3 to 4 feet long. The resting charge inside of a nerve cell is positive because it has more positive molecules in it than it does on the outside. On the outside, it has more negative. The arm of the nerve cell, the axon, is long because it is a chemical factory and has all these negative and positive particle charges inside of it. It is an electrical creature. When the soma and the nuclei convulse an electrical charge in its nucleus, it is like lightning over the membrane. It sparks lights up and down the arm. The spark travels when the gates open and allow the negative particles to flow in, and simultaneously, another gate is open to let the positive flow out. This is what creates electrical current moving and oscillating around this arm. These little minute gates open according to metabolism, letting positive flow out and negative to flow in. The spark, rotating electricity, is moving down the arm and travels out the neuron. When this charged spark travels out of the neuron, it fires and releases serotonin enzymes. As it fires, a dendrite picks up the neurotransmitter from an accommodating nerve cell. There is an exchange, and as the electrical charge moves down the arm, the gates start to close back up behind it. The arm returns to a net positive resting state and a net negative state flowing around it as the charge moves down the arm. This firing of the neurons creates a holographic image. Each spark is like a note playing on a piano, and the resonant sum total produce a holographic picture in the brain that can be analyzed in 3-dimensional terms. Our brain has the capacity to do this. This is why the brain is a conductor, and thoughts are messages from the future as a frequency from another world. This is how the brain can access energy interdimensionally and exists in many worlds at the same time, depending on its resonant field energy.
The language of the mystic arts is as old as civilization. The sorcerers of antiquity called the use of this language spells. But if that word offends your modern sensibilities, you can call it a program. The source code that shapes reality. We harness energy drawn from other dimensions of the multiverse to cast spells, to conjure shields and weapons, to make magic.
Even if my fingers could do that, my hands would just be waving in the air. I mean, how do I get from here to there?
How did you get to reattach severed nerves and put a human spine back together, bone by bone?
Study and practice, years of it.
The more we can understand how our brain can create a holographic image, the more and more we can access more neurons to fire and unplug these neural pathways from our personality and emotions that we've experienced, which is the past. Each nerve cell, with its ensuing neurons coming off the axon, is a specialist in degrees of delivering the frequency of the spark that it has. Each nerve cell in the brain is a little different. Its atomic biology is slightly changed from its neighbor. Each minute neuron has the capacity to deliver a different phase of the same spark. Think of phases of a spark. The spark is like a recipe. The phases are the ingredients that make up the recipe. Each neuron is a specialist in phases. They are all different soldiers of the brain with specialties and abilities. When they deliver the fire, the spark, they represent a photon portion of an entire picture. Each neuron has a specialty, a recipe, and frequency phase, which is an ingredient, that fires in order to give a complete picture, which is the course. These phases can be high, low, in between, slow, and loud. Each one of them helps each other in phasing according to the charge from the axon. All of these scenes that we have experienced exist in our neocortex, and we will never see out there what doesn't first exist here. Disease is the presentation of discomfort and pain of who we are and how we think in accepted thought. If you are sick, then there are scenes in your mind of sickness. This is where we must develop new scenes to construct new realities.
So you figured out a way to reprogram nerve cells to self-heal?
No, Mr. Strange. I know how to reorient the spirit to better heal the body.
This neuronet distributes chemicals to every cell in our body, and every cell mimics the echo of what's in the neuronet. This crew, which are your thoughts, of your film takes the direction and creates your scene, your hologram. Then the scene directs the actors, which are your emotions, which appear in our frontal lobe. It is at this time you must direct your emotions and crew to create the scene you desire. Your divine director is not a part of this neuronet. It sits observing what is presented to it. It is your will. When your will wakes up, the limbic system of the brain then constructs peptides and hormones that are dumped through ductless glands into every part of the cells because it passes through the bloodstream. The cells get new neuropeptides on their receptor sites, and they have receptor sites for them. The receptor sites turns on the nucleic acids of the cell and creates the DNA patterning the image coming from the brain. The cell then reads that message and sends it in a pattern called RNA through an alchemical factory that runs the RNA, which creates amino acids in the form of proteins in sequence to give it to the cell, which creates a whole cell with the change in chemical. Once it is changed, it sends a messenger amino acid back up to the brain, and once the chemical reaches the brain and the neuronet, it becomes hardwired and becomes long-term memory. Emotional neuropathways like pain, insecurity, fear, war, doubt, success, failure, lack, and prejudice are all plugins already existing in our software of the brain. These neural pathways is the foundation of our personality and code of survival in the brain. Emotions are just cell reflex according to neural pathways firing, which also causes a muscular or cellular reflex in the body. Each of these attitudes represents sets of neural pathways in the brain, mainly set up for survival to protect the overall structure. These emotions cause the nerves to reflex muscles and tendons and cause adrenals to start pouring into the bloodstream the adrenal hormones to allow the closing down of the intestinal processes that force the blood in the muscles for an emotional defense. Emotions are neuronet programs that code the emotional body that reacts accordingly. These emotions tire the body due to shutting down cell site receptors to nutrients because it's starving to fight. It refuses to eat and stores it as fat. Then the body produces a disease because of this acid-based environment. The emotions of pain, insecurity, fear, war, doubt, success, failure, lack, prejudice is out of survival and ego, which leads to a focus of need, which means you are in lack. This is why the majority of us sell out to our needs and our emotions due to survival, instead of evolving by attaining knowledge and wisdom.
I got nothing for you, Cap. I got no coordinates, no clues, no strategies, no options, zero, zip, nada. No trust. Liar. Here, take this. You find him, you put that on. You hide.
So most of us have been motivated by survival neuronet pathways than love neuronet pathways. When we function in only survival, we starve our spirit. That is why we must sit and focus to cleanse these old neural pathways, or else they will sabotage everything we do. We have to overcome our humanity, which is an energy of lack, to evolve to our spirit, which is pure abundance. When we attain more knowledge to fill our neocortex, we start to focus outside of our survival. We have to create a new thought hologram, a new crew that consumes the field around it and consume the neuronet in order to fulfill the new vision, meaning we create a new brain full of opportunity and discovery. When this new thought is overlaid consistently, these neurons at the synaptic cleft of the dendrite start to shrivel away and hook up somewhere else until they are finally plugged in. Then it unplugs this neuronet. The moment lack or fear steps in, you know it and replace it. Then focus back on the new thought until the old thought and emotions diminish. This work relaxes the emotional body and turns it into wisdom, which is stored in the hippocampus as long-term memory. You might experience some voices that will want to keep arguing, but those stop once you give your cells new information. This is called emotional pain. When we give it new information, then we change the cell and it no longer acts like it has been cut or hurt or abused. The cell then converts itself according to each one of these informational entities and changes. Once it has changed, it creates peptide information circuitries that are dumped into the bloodstream and go all the way back up to the brain. The brain, the information center, these peptides come back up and make their way back to the hippocampus, to the pituitary, and from the pituitary into the neuronet that is affected by the change of the cell itself. This means that the new attitude as the divine director has finally administered a change that has affected one of these little cells. When the cell is finally changed, it sends the information back up to the limbic system in the brain, notifying it that the change has been made. This then hardwires the neuronet of the brain and changes the consciousness.
And that's it. That's those little brave baby steps we gotta take to try and become whole again, try and find purpose. You gotta move on. You gotta move on. The world is in our hands. It's left to us, guys. And we gotta do something with it.
When these voices continue to come up for evaluation, we must clearly have a new thought that we project in our frontal lobe to interrupt the flow. This is what it means to conquer yourself, your ego, your lower three seals, your personality, your selfishness. This is what it means to be conscious of the thoughts in the brain and more detached about your body's conversation. The only way to quiet these voices is by holding the new thought, and the new thought is not going to feel like anything. It is like one man or one woman battling against an army of thousands of warriors, and all you can say is,
"You shall not pass!"
That being is then more powerful than the thousands because they have the sword of their absolute will, who is not intimidated by the emotional body's needs. You will say, "No, I do not care who you are. I do not care how big and bad you think you are. You are not going to pass."
I do not believe it. I will not.
And it is here I will stand. That is a master. This is the being you decide to become, who listens to the voices and conquers them rather than surrenders to them. This is the adventure, and there is nothing more powerful than our divine director, which is consciousness and energy, the voices that live within you. They would not be speaking if there was not someone to listen to them. Have you ever wondered who those voices were? These voices are the enemy within us. These delusions, the chemicals of emotion. These voices plead for recognition, but without your attention, your divine director, they have zero power. We all have a divine director to which these voices speak, but yet we have forgotten. That is why we are known as the forgotten gods. It's time to discover the one who is listening to these voices. The feelings are a plea for approval. The emotional body pleads to the brain for continuity of the same, to follow and soothe ourselves to keep us in our comfort zone, which then becomes habit.
And when I kill you, I will have killed the last Jedi.
Amazing. Every word of what you just said was wrong. The rebellion is reborn today. The war is just beginning. And I will not be the last Jedi.
But who is the one giving permission? You are. It is perfectly fine to not have any feelings and to become Spirit, the invisible, the royal, the divine director of your life. You must look at the thoughts from the body and tell it with command and will, you are going to do it. I will not acknowledge your sickness, your pity, your laziness, your excuses because you crave for them, but rather with understanding and will, you declare, I do not and will not acknowledge them. We must face these demonic, impure thoughts and stand tall in full belief of the power of our will. We must be able to stand on this bridge alone, a master who doesn't need anyone. Are you willing to give that up and stand alone? Or are you one of those who passed into safety while someone else stood there for you because they knew you were not going to do it? You must look at your own fellowship and see what it is based upon. Is it based upon lack, fear, or tragedy? What kind of relationships do you have with the people around you? Is it so important to you that people love you and follow you, to be an influencer, a celebrity? If that is a need of yours, then you are not ready to stand on this bridge. Every day you cannot allow sickness, weakness, victimhood, and entertain lack. Every day you must love and become your spirit to rise out of suffering. In order to be a master, you must master your humanity in order to reveal Spirit, your divine director. Spirit doesn't have a past and is not a victim. Only the human is. You must develop your mind and not the body. Dedicate yourself to sincere focus of will. The key is focus, a stilled mind at one with itself, where we go to a place of no thought. You don't allow a single mundane, dull, tiresome thought to enter your consciousness. Do you have the capacity to become a master? You must stop the excuses, the unhappiness, the lack, the limitations which create these demons. We must face this ego, our altered self. You are the lawgiver of life, and remember, every thought matters. Become greater than what you think, your body, your limitations, your demons. To dream a new dream and take control of your life, the power of your will. And this is the art of consciousness.